Hi everyone, my name is Nordiana Adriani binti Rosli. You can call me Teacher D. I'm the second presenter for today's topic. Today, I'm going to talk about 5 major bioethical issues and the importance of bioethics in social and healthcare. As we know, bioethics is the study of ethical issues emerging from advances in biology and medicines. 5 major bioethical issues are abortion, euthanasia, eugenics, human cloning, and stem cell research. So let's know more details about them. First is abortion. The controversy over abortion has been the most debated of all issues analyzed in bioethics. What is abortion? Abortion is the removal of fetus or embryo from a woman's uterus, resulting in the termination of pregnancy. Abortion in Malaysia is mostly illegal except in cases when a medical practitioner deems that continuing the pregnancy poses a danger to mother's life, physical health, and mental well-being. The first country that legalized abortion is Iceland. Other countries that allow abortion are French, Canada, Belgium, but depends on the conditions set by the country. When is abortion legal? It's legal when abortion for the sake of the mother's health, including her mental health. Second, abortion where the child of the pregnancy would have an unacceptable quality of life. For example, the cases where the child would have serious physical handicaps, serious genetic problems, and serious mental defects. Third, abortion as a nature of government policy as a way of regulating population size. Last, abortion in which pregnancy is a result of crimes such as rape. The abortion debate is the ongoing controversy surrounding the moral, legal, and religious status of induced abortion. In English-speaking countries, the sides involved in the debate are self-described pro-choice and pro-life movement, where pro-choice is the right to take life, and pro-life is the right to give life. Pro-life advocates adhere to the principle which call for the protection and preservation of human life in all its forms. They argue that a human fetus is a human being with a right to live, making abortion morally the same as murder. While pro-choice advocates maintain that the mother, being a human being and not merely a machine of procreation, has the right and the freedom to decide when to continue or terminate pregnancy. The state has no authority to prohibit abortion since this belongs to the domain of the parents, especially the woman, as a matter of human right. Should people be given the right to choose when to die? Now we are talking about euthanasia. Euthanasia is the intentional and painless taking of another person to eliminate untreatable suffering. In many cases, doctors will provide people with a drug they can take to end their life. A little dose of opioid may be prescribed for this. In the end, it's up to the person to decide whether they take the drug. There are 4 types of euthanasia. First, active euthanasia is when a doctor ends a patient's life by administering a legal injection or any other way. Second, passive euthanasia is not doing anything to stop the death of a person. It is when a doctor withholds any means in order to prolong the life of a patient. Third is voluntary euthanasia, where patient desire to end his life and it's clearly his decision to die. The last one is involuntary euthanasia, bringing about someone's death against her will or without asking for his consent, while he is competent to decide. Euthanasia debates. The supporters of euthanasia view the course of action as a relief to unnecessary suffering if a patient is going to succumb to an incurable disease either way. Many patients in persistent vegetative states or else in chronic illness do not want to be a burden on their family members. Euthanasia also frees up medical funds to help other people. Euthanasia is another case of freedom of choice, the right to commit suicide. However, opponents view life as sacred and fear a slippery slope into allowing treatable patients to die of their own will. Opponents also view euthanasia same as murder, and it is only God who can take away human life. On the other hand, it discourages scientists who are looking for a cure for incurable ailment.
Il s'endort et puis il décède. Sans aucune souffrance, il n'y a aucune douleur, il s'endort.
Que nous allons tous mourir et j'ai le droit, moi, d'exiger une qualité pour ma fin de vie.
Vous êtes au dernier soir de votre vie.
Tout à fait. C'est arrivé demain matin.
Vous attendez donc de ma part et de la part des médecins belges une euthanasie dans un avenir assez rapproché, si j'ose dire. Qu'est-ce qui va vous faire décider d'une date que vous allez nous proposer?
Moi, je pense que ça va se niveau. Si au niveau communication et mobilité, j'ai plus rien.
Nous devons accepter qu'on ne peut pas tout guérir et notre rôle quand on ne peut pas tout guérir est d'essayer de soulager le patient, d'apaiser ses souffrances. Je continue à remplir mon métier de médecin en allant jusqu'au bout du bout.
Les enfants peuvent être là ou pas là.
C'est vous qui décidez, qui est là, qui n'est pas là, et c'est eux qui disent oui, non, c'est une chambre d'hôpital, petite, la moitié de cette pièce-ci, mais bon, il y a toujours une ou deux personnes de la famille qui sont là. Mais c'est vous qui décidez tout ça. C'est la première fois que je vois quelqu'un arriver ici à mon bureau en ambulance. Il n'aurait pas pu utiliser d'autres moyens de transport, c'était impossible. Il remplit les conditions nécessaires, il a fait une demande écrite. J'ai le document, donc il a cette maladie qui est grave et incurable et il a des souffrances inapaisables. Il remplit les 3 conditions de base. C'est un geste important, difficile, qui a un impact émotionnel grand. Je n'appelle pas ça tuer un patient, je raccourcis son agonie, je raccourcis ses souffrances, je donne le dernier soin, mais je n'ai pas l'impression de tuer le patient. Vous ne souhaitez pas mourir pour le moment?
Pour l'instant, ce n'est pas une urgence et je comprends bien que si je posais cette demande...
Se fait refuser.
Je considère que la mort, ça se regarde en face et si on peut, on l'attend debout. Et c'est un sujet qui nous concerne tous parce que nous allons tous mourir et j'ai le droit, moi, d'exiger une qualité pour ma fin de vie. Je ne veux pas finir dans un pissoir. Je suis une patiente de M. Delocq pour envisager une solution que je qualifierais de plus humaine et de plus efficace.
Personne qui nous a quittés, qui m'a parlé via son logiciel informatique. Avec ses yeux, elle fixait une lettre et elle est parvenue à faire cette phrase « Merci de me soulager, je suis fatiguée ». J'ai été très impressionné. Elle était atteinte de la maladie de Charcot. C'est difficile de refuser. On est obligé, vu le nombre de demandes, de choisir. Donc je prends toujours les patients les plus gravement atteints. Ça m'est arrivé de dire non, pas pour des raisons uniquement médicales, pour des raisons affectives ou des gens que je connais très bien, des personnes de ma famille. Il est hors de question que je le fasse moi-même. Je viendrai vous dire bonjour, voir si vous n'avez pas changé d'avis pendant la nuit. Je sais pas.
Non, ça risque pas.
Ça m'étonnerait.
Et le professeur viendra vous dire bonjour et puis on ira préparer les produits qui vont vous endormir. Voilà, c'est fini pour vous.
Pas de problème. Vous ne pouvez pas imaginer le soulagement que j'ai eu la première fois que je suis venu à Bruxelles et que j'ai rencontré le docteur, de savoir que ça pouvait se faire. Ça m'a enlevé un poids, mais que j'avais sur la poitrine qui a disparu. J'étais même transformé en me disant, ça y est, enfin, une issue.
Tu n'auras plus ton mot à dire.
Vous n'aurez plus rien à dire.
At the very beginning, he told me I will struggle up to the end. I will do all my best to be cured. But actually, all the very heavy treatment didn't work. So now he's given up.
Dans le secteur professionnel ou...
Non, c'est insupportable. Je vois ma femme freiner un petit peu, bien sûr, elle veut gagner du temps. Et je dis, ne cherche pas trop à me gagner. Une nuit, je vais me buter la paillasse. Et je me suis retenu quand même, parce qu'il faut être digne. Je peux faire ça dignement. C'est pour ça que je suis vraiment reconnaissant. Grâce à vous, je vais mourir dignement.
It was difficult for me to accept it. And I say, the longer time we are going to wait, the better. But such is life, Time has come for him to stop his life, because his life is not his life anymore. He has been too fed for nearly 1 year now. So he said, I'm like a dog, I feel like a dog with a leash. It's a bit inhuman.
Là, vous êtes au dernier soir de votre vie.
Tout à fait. C'est arrivé le matin. Mais on en rigole depuis pas mal d'heures. J'ai du mal à les faire rire, mais au moins Isabelle est préparée plutôt que je meure de l'accident, comme ça peut arriver, que ça va m'arriver. Mais là, au moins, on a tout préparé. C'est pas le cancer qui me prend, c'est moi qui décide.
Voilà, Michel est parti avec beaucoup d'émotions, mais ça s'est très bien passé en douceur. Il n'a pas dormi une minute de toute la nuit, ça a été très long. Il nous a dit merci encore en partant. Les larmes de son épouse et de ses 2 fils, c'est une image qui me reste pendant quelques jours. J'ai un peu le contre-coup là maintenant.
Let's watch the video about euthanasia. The third major bioethical issue is eugenics. Eugenics is a type of DNA manipulation that creates selective breeding to improve the human race. There are 2 types of eugenics. First is positive eugenics introduced by Francis Galton, which is encouraging people with good genes to have more children. Second is negative eugenics. They don't allow bad genes to be reproduced. They will be forced to do sterilization or abortion, marriage restriction, and euthanasia, as I mentioned before. The current debate on the re-emergence of eugenics is worrying, as most of its proponents seem to be urging for gene manipulation for higher intelligence and beauty, while only a few are concerned with its implications. Supporters of eugenics view gene selection as a good opportunity to see the advancement of the species along with the extinction of certain genetic disease, while opponents view that eugenics could lead to discrimination against certain races, disabled individuals, or even hair colors. Besides, they worry about the presence of force or compulsion, the imposition of arbitrary standards of perfection, and lastly, inequities that might arise from allowing the practice of eugenic choice. I think everyone ever heard about human cloning. Human cloning is the creation of genetically identical copy of human. There are two types of human cloning. First is therapeutic cloning and second is reproductive cloning. Human cloning may refer to therapeutic cloning, particularly the cloning of embryonic cells to obtain organs for transplantation or for treating injured nerve cells and other health purposes. But human cloning more typically refers to reproductive cloning, the use of somatic cell nuclear transfer or known as SCNT to obtain eggs that could develop into adult individuals. The ethical issues of human cloning are divided into two, religious and medical. In religious issues, some people believe that cloning is similar to playing God. They believe that God should be the creator of all living and natural things. They also believe that a human has the right for the full human development in natural environment and that the human embryo should be left alone after the 40th day of fertilization. Besides, some religious people believe that if you clone a human being, it has no soul. Lastly, people believe human cloning takes away from an individual being unique and stresses psychological and social development. In medical issue, technically human genes grows older with age. It's feared that the cloned individual would retain the age of the donor's genes. The most important is the chances of cloning success is low, as there are definitely a lot of disadvantages that will happen. For examples, the pregnancy itself might fail, and implantation of the embryo into the surrogate mother might fail. This is also include the problems during later development.
We've been able to clone human embryos for about 7 years. But as far as we know, no one's actually cloned a whole person. Turns out, ethics aren't the only thing holding scientists back. Cloning isn't the sci-fi marvel we think it is. It can be dangerous, often ineffective, and most of all, we just haven't thought of a good enough reason to do it. So here's why you'll probably never have to fight your evil clone. This is Dolly. Just kidding, that's a regular sheep. This is Dolly, the first mammal cloned successfully from an adult cell. She was born in 1996 after scientists figured out how to remove the DNA from the egg cell of a Scottish blackface sheep and basically replace it with the DNA of a mammary cell from a Finn Dorset sheep. They gave it a little electric shock to fuse the cell and get it replicating, placed the cells in the uterus of another sheep, and boom, clone. This method, called reproductive cloning, could theoretically be used on humans. But this is a best-case scenario. It took 277 tries for the scientists to get one Dolly. Nowadays, cloning mammals generally has a success rate of about 10 to 20%, better than 1 in 277, but still a majorly inefficient process.
Technically, it's not difficult to produce clone embryos, but human cloning has other hurdles that need to be considered.
To even research human cloning, scientists would need to ethically collect a large amount of donated eggs and find enough surrogates to carry them. But even if they made it through that logistical nightmare, the biggest issue is this.
They're going to hurt the baby or they're going to hurt the person carrying the clone fetus.
Across the board, scientists have found that some embryos expire before they're implanted. Others result in miscarriages. And those that make it to term often die soon after birth or end up with severe abnormalities. Simply, these are risks that are easier to take when it comes to experimenting with sheep than with people. But arguably the biggest reason we haven't cloned a human being? There's not a good enough reason to. In pop culture, cloning is used to bring people back from the dead. But that's not how it works. Cloning someone would only create a twin, not a replica, since identical twins have the same genetics, but not necessarily personalities. And a never let me go scenario where organs are harvested from clones to save the rich is not only unethical, but unnecessary. Why clone an entire person when you can just make the part you need? Something theoretically therapeutic cloning can solve. Therapeutic cloning is almost identical to reproductive, except the cloned embryo is never implanted in a uterus. Instead, the embryo is cloned for the sole purpose of extracting stem cells. Stem cells have the incredible ability to turn into any other cell in the human body, which means they're great for developing new treatments for disease and have the potential to repair or regenerate tissues and organs. But no surprise, there are a lot of downsides with therapeutic cloning. The thing about stem cells is that they're a pretty limited resource. The most substantial source for embryonic stem cells? 3 to 5 day old embryos, cloned or otherwise. And when someone else's stem cells are transplanted into a patient, the body will sometimes fight them off like a disease. Some researchers believe that cloned stem cells, since they share the patient's DNA, would be less likely to be rejected. But this use case is still in the research stage. And finally, therapeutic cloning is an individualized treatment in a world where drug companies are more interested in standardized ones. And there are easier ways to create multipurpose cells nowadays, like the method for creating induced pluripotent stem cells. They're basically adult cells that have been reprogrammed to be a different type of cell.
The problem with therapeutic cloning, of course, is that you need lab personnel that is qualified to do it, specific equipment to do it, whereas the other technique, you can just buy a kit and one person can do it in a lab that has some expertise in tissue culture.
Cloned cells still have an advantage when it comes to healthier mitochondria and the ability to grow into entire animals, whereas iPSCs often peter out. But since iPSCs safely and reliably do most everything but create entire living animals, why fund the harder, ethically ambiguous thing? So cloning might actually have a bigger place in movies than it does in real life, because the money just isn't there. And just because we can do something doesn't mean we need to.
Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
So in the research for this video, I did come across one very interesting tidbit, and that is the announcement of cloned human baby Eve, who was born on December 26, 2002. And the source of this announcement is a company called Clonaid, which was formed in 1997 by the Raelian cult. And they're a cult that believes that humans were cloned from aliens, and the only way for us to reach immortality is to clone ourselves. It's been 18 years, and we haven't gotten any proof that baby Eve exists or has ever existed, but the company is still alive and well. So if any proof does come through, we will update you. Subscribe below so you don't miss it.
Now, let's watch the video, Why We Still Haven't Cloned Human. The last major of bioethical issue is stem cell research. Stem cells are naturally occurring in the human body. They repair and revive other cells to replace dead tissues and can divide to take the place of cells that have specific functions. Stem cells can be used to repair a multitude of problems and have been used by scientists to help with the effect of Alzheimer's, heart disease, and spinal cord injuries. Stem cell research debate. Supporters view this research has potential in curing diseases such as Parkinson's disease, and the curing process will be more effective if embryonic stem cells are used rather than adult stem cells. While opponent views embryos as the potential for new life and destruction of such embryos as the destruction of life. Now, we are moving to the importance of bioethics. In society, bioethics in healthcare brought about awareness to health workers of the medical practice. Second, bioethics as a governing tool to moderate the conduct of research. Three basic principles among those generally accepted in our cultural tradition are particularly relevant to the ethics of research involving human subjects. The principles are respect of persons, beneficence, and justice. Third is enriching the ability of health workers to further understand the patient as a person. The last one, to maintain the integrity of human and animal rights as they are fundamental tenets of society. Healthcare ethics deals with ethical issues in healthcare, medicine, and science. Ethical codes and its application have long history from ancient era. In present scenario, both advancement in medical field and the challenges are increasing in same pace for healthcare providers to deal with ethical issues. Therefore, the undoubtedly important rules of bioethics emerges here. Firstly, bioethics in healthcare brings understanding and knowledge among healthcare professionals about medical practice. Stressing upon the ethical aspect of bioethics, medical professionals are capable of taking along ethical codes while practicing, especially while dealing with issues. As ethical tribulations are linked with issues in medical care, so by application of bioethics, the healthcare system of our country can be better radically. Bioethics not only provides a guideline to medical professionals about clinical decision-making, advancement in medical technologies, but also playing a vital role in policy changes and legislation in recent years.